James, and I'd like to welcome you to the Oracle Outlook for the week starting December the 25th, 2017. As I was getting ready for this week's video, I realized that this is actually the last week of 2017 because the week starts off with Christmas being observed on Monday and it ends with New Year's Eve being on the following Sunday. And so I realized then that this is going to be the last Oracle Outlook video reading for 2017. And I thought, what deck would I like to use as we bring 2017 to a close? And then I thought, I would like to work with a deck that actually surprised me in 2017. So the deck that I have chosen to work with for this final Oracle Outlook of the year is the Gypsy Witch Playing Cards. And the reason for the deck selection is because this deck was actually a suggestion and a recommendation by one of my viewers, Captain Nolan, who asked me if I would be willing to work with this deck for one of the Oracle Outlook videos. The only thing was I didn't have it in my collection, so I had to acquire it and spend a little bit of time getting to know it before shooting that video for the Oracle Outlook. And so once the video was shot, I decided that I wanted to continue working with the deck, and as I have been spending more time with it, it has really been growing on me. I have found that the Gypsy Witch cards are this unique system in and of itself. And so that has been making it so much fun to work with it. So once again, we're going to be working with the Gypsy Witch Playing Cards. They are published by US Game Systems. So now that I talked about the deck, let's now move into the final Oracle Outlook video reading of 2017. And now I'm taking up the deck, and I'll take a few moments to shuffle the cards. As I do, I'm focusing on my usual intention and question for the cards, and that is, what do we need to know for the week ahead? Alright, I'm going to go ahead now and cut the cards. And fan them out. And what I'm doing now is I'm looking for 5 cards that are getting my attention. So we'll be working with a line of 5. Alright, I have the 5 cards selected. And now we'll put the remainder of the deck to one side. All right. And now we'll start things off by looking at the middle card. For me, the middle card always represents the central issue for the week, or what we're being asked to focus on for the week ahead. And so here we have the King of Hearts. Okay, so the King of Hearts is a face card or a card card. So there's a couple of ways that we could look at this. We could look at this as a possibility of a person who's going to be playing a central role in how things unfold for this week. And if we go with that, then the King of Hearts can represent a family man. He could be a head of the household, so he could be a father, he could be a husband, an older sibling, somebody who is family oriented. That's one of my go-tos with the King of Hearts. The other thing about the King is that he can represent someone who has a great deal of emotional control, right? So this could be another description of the person that is going to be playing a part, but in the other way of looking at this card is that this card can represent a way that we're being asked to approach the week ahead. So going with that, it may be important for us to remain as calm, cool, and collected as possible going into the week. And this is why I'm looking at the secondary symbol on the card. And so the card is hand in hand. So this could be, you know, meeting other people, being introduced to people, making commitments and agreements with other people, things of that nature. And so with that, that may be where the need for emotional calm, emotional maturity, emotional control comes in, because we may be around other people this week. So I'm seeing that as the King of Hearts and hand in hand. The other thing that I want to point out as I'm looking at the card is that the suit of hearts can represent feelings and emotions, which I've already talked about, but it can also be a healing type of energy. So the King of Hearts could be a person who is wanting to do some healing work around an emotionally charged issue, or something having to do on an emotional level. So there is that, or that somebody is actually working on becoming a healer. So those are two ways of looking at the King of Hearts. Either one, we are going to be engaged in doing some healing work, some much needed healing work, or two, that we are actually moving into becoming a healer, and that is going to be the work that we do with other people, and that would make sense going again with hand in hand, right? Somebody may actually want to do healing work with couples, because I'm looking at the image and there's a man and a woman, or at least you could tell by their hands. And so it could be like somebody who wants to do healing work for other people around relationships, around commitments, those kinds of things. So I'm seeing that with King of Hearts and hand in hand. So now let's take a look at the surrounding cards, because they're going to offer more information about the central issue. Okay, so here we have, on the far left, we have the Queen of Spades. All right, so here we have another face card. So now they're very interesting because they share a little bit of a dichotomy or a contrast. Whereas I talked about the King of Hearts being this family type man, this husband, father, somebody who's committed on an emotional level, Queen of Spades is quite different. She represents a person who may be divorced, widowed, or separated, right? So there is that already, that contrast with that. Could also be a woman who is problematic or difficult, and so that may be the need for the emotional, calm, cool, and collected that I talked about with the King of Hearts, because there could be a woman on the scene who's going to be problematic or difficult to some degree, and we're going to be needing to learn how to best navigate our feelings and emotions around her, that kind of thing. So there is that. Now, if it's not about a person, when the Queen of Spades comes up, as you know, spades being the first card in the line, says that we may be needing to make some kind of decision, regarding some kind of problem, because I tend to look at spades as problems, challenges, obstacles, hurdles, and then this being a face card would represent a person who needs to make a decision regarding some kind of problem, right? The other thing could be is that we may be embarking on approaching life with looking at it through the idea of cutting out what we no longer need or want. It's very interesting that this card would come up on the heels of the years changing, like this being the last year of 2017, because that may be just the time to get us thinking about, what do I no longer need or want in my life? And am I willing to make some decisions about cutting those things out? And some of those things could be people. You know, it could be situations that are no longer working for you, relationships with people that are no longer working for you, that kind of thing, or circumstances that are no longer working for you. In that regard, I tend to look at her as the feng shui queen. She gets rid of things, but she also creates the space. You know, the idea is not just about getting rid of stuff just to get rid of it. It's about creating space, right? So there is that. Now, another thing that could be happening with this, if I talked about with the King of Hearts being about doing some healing work, then with the Queen of Spades, it could also be working on situations in which we feel cut off, which we feel distant, which we feel a sense of separation, which we feel a sense of estrangement, right? And so it could be about wanting to repair that. So now I'm taking a look at the secondary image, and here we have Amore, that's the name of the card, but this could be Cupid, the angel. And so for me, the symbol of Cupid represents something that we desire, So it could just be a matter of taking a look at what it is that you desire in your life, what is it that you want in your life, what is it that you're longing for, and is there anything that's keeping you or creating a block from you achieving what it is that you long for or what you desire. And that may be where the Queen of Spades comes in. Again, that idea, like, would you be willing to work on doing some work around eliminating the block, about removing the block, about solving the problem, right? So I'm seeing that with the Queen of Spades and Amore. Now the card in between is the Four of Hearts. Okay, so now we have two cards from the suit of hearts, so that's ruling majority right now. So hearts as a suit for me can represent things like feelings, emotions, which we've been talking about, but also the idea of healing, which I've also talked about. So there may be a sense of that energy still carrying over. Very interesting, when a heart card follows a spades card for me, there could be for somebody is really wanting to do some work around healing and emotional hurt, wound, or pain, because I tend to look at spades and hearts as a combination, suggesting that. Could be also, too, a challenge with relationships again, and that may be the energy of the King of Hearts coming back in, asking us to do what we need to do to kind of maintain some level of emotional control, not letting our feelings and emotions get the best of us, right? That kind of thing. And so now the Four of Hearts is an interesting card, because for me, when it talks about relationships, it's about wanting to feel a sense of safety, security, and stability within our relationships, right? Being around people or being involved in situations and circumstances in which we feel comfortable. So I'm offering that as somebody may be needing to work on creating energy in their relationships in which they feel a greater sense of safety, stability, and security. So there's that, because the Four of Hearts is known as the marriage bed card. And so when I talk about it in that sense, it can mean a relationship in which we want to feel a greater sense of connection and closeness, right? And so with that, the Four could suggest needing to do some work around that. The Four as a number can represent work, and not just work, but hard work. So understanding that some relationships require not just work, but a lot of work, a lot of hard work. And you have to ask yourself the honest question, are you willing to do the work, right? On your side, because you can't control what another person's going to do on their side. You can only control you. But are you willing to do the work? Are you willing to roll your sleeves up and do the work, right? So there's that. The other thing about the Four is that it's a foundation number. It's a number of foundation. So it could be like, this could be the week, especially if we've been feeling cut off, if we've been feeling estranged, if we're needing to do some healing work, maybe around some sort of reconciliation, that kind of thing, then it's about establishing a new foundation, right? In which both parties feel a sense of safety, stability, and security. So I'm seeing that with the Four of Hearts. Now, the secondary symbol is the fish. Typically for me, the fish would mean money, but since the other cards aren't feeling or making me feel like that is the context for fish, it could be this idea of wanting to go deeper, right? Because I tend to look at fish as depth, something that's deep. So it could be for some people may want to feel a greater sense of depth in their relationships, wanting to go deeper. And that would imply, again, with the marriage bed aspect of the Four of Hearts, right? You can only become intimate with another person when each person in the relationship is willing to go deeper. So for some people, they may be wanting to experience greater depth in their relationships, right? And the other thing with that, fish is all about flow. So it's about understanding that relationships kind of ebb and flow. They go through cycles, that kind of thing. And that may be where the work comes in order to maintain the relationship. Are you willing to work on it when it's flowing? And are you willing to work on it when it's kind of in its ebb cycle? So I'm seeing that with the Four of Hearts and fish. So now let's take a look at what's going on the other side. And here we have, so here we have the Eight of Spades. So this is very interesting. So now we have two hearts and we have two spades. So we have this potential conflict between the way we're thinking about something, which would be spades energy, and the way we're feeling about things, which is hearts energy, right? So there is that. Now the Eight of Spades can come up when, in the sense of talking about with relationships, this card can represent like creating a sense of balance. So notice what I talked about with ebb and flow. That's balance, right? And so this card here, the 8, is a number of balance. Now, it's attached to a spade, so spades can represent challenges, blocks, obstacles, right? So with that, this could suggest that there may be a sense of imbalance within a particular relationship or relationships, and we're wanting to take a greater look at that because the 8, for me, is about observation, looking at things. So we may be wanting to take a look at that because this card can literally represent investigating something. So it could be taking a closer look at that, wanting to go beyond the surface, going back to fish, right? Going beyond the surface, right? With whatever is going on. The other thing here could be about like this idea of wanting to be in healthier relationships. When I look at the 8 and it's attached to the spades in particular, then it can be calling into question the health of something, right? So it could be just saying to like, maybe somebody is, as 2017 is coming to a close, and for 2018, they may be wanting to create a greater sense of balance in relationships, in which they feel a greater sense of personal power in their relationships, in which they feel they're moving into or experiencing healthier relationships. So I'm seeing all of that with the 8 of spades. And so now the symbol is the mountain. So mountain is a card that can represent a challenge, it could represent a block, it could represent an obstacle. Now it's very interesting, one of the other things that I think of with mountain, and it comes back to the Queen of Spades, is this idea of being distant, right? So somebody may want to look at either being distant themselves in relationships or being in relationships with other people who are distant. Because I'm seeing that, and that may be a challenge or a block that you are wanting to move beyond. Now the other thing here is I'm looking at the combination of hand in hand and mountain. So here we have the potential here for a challenging agreement. We have a block to an agreement. We have maybe a delay or setback with a relationship or an agreement or a commitment, if I read the combination of hand in hand and mountain. So for somebody, that may be something you want to take a greater look at. Or it could be saying too, like if you're wanting to do some work with a relationship, either you or the other person may be creating some kind of block, obstacle, challenge. There may be some sort of delay or setback with that. So that is how I would look at the 8 of spades and mountain. And so now let's take a look at the final card in the line. And here we have, okay, this is interesting. So now here we have the 9 of diamonds. So now this is a wonderful card to have as the last card because the suit of diamonds for me can represent something being successful, right? So with the 9 is a number of gain or attainment. So it could be saying too, like for the people who are really keen on this idea of doing some emotional work or doing some work around certain particular or specific relationships, this bodes well because there is some level of success that can be gained or attained from taking the time and energy. That's the other thing with diamonds, taking the time and energy to do the work. So I'm seeing that. Now the secondary image here is the heart. So the heart is all about things having to do with our feelings, our emotions. So we're getting this a couple of different ways. We're getting it through the playing card aspects of the cards, but we're also now getting it through the symbol on the card. So this is the week where we're really taking a look at our feelings, our emotions, our relationships, that kind of thing. Also too, our level of affection for other people, because I'm looking at this with heart. Heart can also represent affection. It can also represent, things that we're passionate about. So it could be going with amore on the opposite end, and I talked about desire and longing. It's like, so we may be saying too, like, as the year comes to a close and we're looking at the opening of next year, what is it that you desire? What is it that you long for? What are the things that you are passionate about? And what are you willing to do to kind of get that ball rolling or start the process of bringing those things into manifestation into your life, right? Because the 9 of diamonds suggests like this is the time to start thinking about the energy that you want to put into those things. Because remember, everything is all about energy, at least for me in my more metaphysical perspective. Everything is energy. So you only get out of a situation the level of energy that you put into it. right? The greater energy that you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it in the end. So I'm looking at that with the 9 of diamonds. So on that note, I will go ahead and end and round out this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and as I close for the last final week of 2017, I want to thank you for sharing this space here with me throughout 2017, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in 2018. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day. I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. And for those of you who are celebrating the Christmas holiday, I hope you enjoy that. And for those of you who are going to be rocking in New Year's Eve, I hope you have a wonderful new year. I will see you in 2018. Take care.